Welcome to the Chronically Well podcast, where we hold real conversations with community that needs to be heard. On today's conversation, you will hear from Jennifer. Jennifer is someone that I've been speaking to probably in the diabetic online community for probably the last 6 months. Back in October, I actually introduced myself to Jennifer and asked her if she would be a part of a campaign, Diabetes Looks Like Me 2023, Representation Matters. And Jennifer quickly jumped aboard and was like, yes, let's get this ball going. And thank you for that, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And so in this space, I do give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves to the world. So I know that you have a voice that matters. You have a presence that matters, that continues to build. And this is the opportunity. This is your space. This is your floor. Jennifer, Jenn, my sister, give the world an introduction of who you are.
Well, thank you for the illustrious intro. I am very blessed to be here with you because one, we don't know when we're going to foster a relationship that's actually going to matter in this day and age, intentional. But two, I'm a private person, and I've kind of relished this attitude of, a here and there, a high. And I've been just called more recently to want to do things. And around that time when I was praying on it and about where I needed to be in this space, here comes along Willie asking for people to offer their voice, offer their opinions, and to share their lives, essentially, with people we don't know about diabetes. And my daughter said, heck yeah, like, Mom, you're not going to run away from this. You're going to make a video. So thank you. You were very instrumental in doing that. But being a person of color and being a woman, a veteran, a mother, a wife, and a person that works a 9 to 5, I was, I didn't know how much space I needed to fill up in this community. But the more involved I become, and that can happen, type 1s, yes, you're not all, championing the same thing. We're not all wearing it like a badge of honor, some of us are not, but I've always seen resilience in it. It's changed and shaped who I am today. And I always want to be a beacon of hope when it comes to that, especially in our community. And anybody that knows me, that has met me in person, I will run up to you and call you a dia buddy, dia sister, dia brother, quick. Yes, I don't. If I see a pod, if I see a pump, a CGM, we're already connected.
Right,
I'm coming up to you.
You're going to invade that space.
I'm coming because guess what? I did the same thing. I dormantly hid in broad daylight and, to the naked eye, something that I know I can't erase. And that is the least, I guess, you're belittling yourself when you even try to change what was placed upon you to live with. You're limiting your life, you're limiting your connections and our influence. So listen, you say people of color, you say type 1, chronic disease as well. I'm there. And like I told you, I'll champion anything that you are spearheading. And I really believe in your mission. So thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I did not ask first. Do you prefer going by Jennifer, Jenn, Jenny?
No Jenny, but Jenn is great.
Straight off the block, but no Jenny. I got you.
Yes.
I got you. I understand. Look, and my name is Willie, but don't call me Willie.
I got it.
That's my dad's name. I keep telling people that, and they just love calling me Willie. Look, they weren't in school with me.
So you prefer to go by Will?
Yeah, definitely. Will. My family actually calls me Will, but that's
Will. Okay.
Little Will.
Because you're Little Will. I get it.
Yep. And I actually call my dad Big Will. So.
Well, I've actually listened. My dad calls me Jay. My mom calls me Jenny. All my cousins call me Jenny because they remember me when I was, yay high. So, but Yeah, and Jennifer is my corporate, but Jen is what it is. So yeah,
I
that's easy
got you.
for me.
I got you. And you mentioned about being in this space. Just let you know there's no limit to you in this space. Keep filling it.
That's
Keep
right.
filling
Thank
it.
you.
Yes,
Yes.
fill it until it overflows. And once it overflows, make sure you put a cork in it so it can
Yep.
keep on filling.
Mhm.
So it won't evaporate
That's
because
right.
our representation matters. This is
Yes.
our world. This is
Hmm.
our world. Everyone needs to understand that and feel us because everything does not have to be what we see across our feeds. It does
Yeah.
not have to be. Um, I place it upon myself to make sure that everyone that I come across that looks like me, that has gone through some of the same lived situations and circumstances as me,
Hmm.
get the chance to truly be unapologetically themselves.
Yeah.
Because when we hold these conversations, like me and you, brother and sister, like the ball just keeps on rolling, keeps on rolling. We
Right.
keep on picking up things that truly are a blessing. And
Hmm.
we people from the outside, they truly don't know or understand this connection that we have.
Yeah.
Look, our connection dates back many centuries ago
Yeah.
to our struggles, our uplifting, our roots being rearranged. Like,
Mm. I tell you, Will, you're touching on something that's really deep because people don't understand. Like, just play with mentally. Just play with me real quick. What if it is indeed the connection that we have, having the same pancreatic issue, right? What if we are literally the dots that need to be connected to develop the cure, to develop the attention to detail and what we need to do? I mean, because we see it now, it's happening from, infancy stages to a person who is well beyond retirement age being diagnosed with this. So now, we're so broad. The spectrum has just, it is broadened, and we can talk about type 2 and that and things like that, but we're talking, it's deeper than that. Graves' disease, we have thyroid conditions coming up out of this. We've got liver condition, kidney conditions coming up out of this, certain paralysis, you name it, vision issues. It just, and then there's a whole other ball game with that because you're an aging man and I'm an aging woman. So then we have another, we branch off again. So now, how do we manage the type 1? I'm a 40-year-old as of this year. Now that I'm 40, how do I manage it now? It's a lot different than when I was 21 years old, 22 years old, bouncing around the club with no CGM,
tell me
doing
about it.
doing continuous multiple daily injections. Did I take 20 of Levemir or did I take 10? Or did I, just what were you, lying to your endocrinologist, missing all your labs? We've all been held to so many different standards of greatness, I think, with it, because they're like, oh, well, you got it. You should know how to function. You should know what you're doing. But little do we talk about, there's people who are still diabulemic. There are people who are still battling with being brittle diabetics, being, severely impaired diabetics, finding out so late that now, they're having issues with other parts of their body. So now not only do you have one concern to pay attention to, you have another one. And then it just snowballs. But to get back to what you're saying about like being connected, I'm saying, like, think about it. What if we literally are the next wave of what science and looking at chronic diseases looks like? Because no one can put a finger on what exactly it is that got us this way. Now, we all have our personal theories, but I feel like sometimes I'm a strange cat because I was physically fit. I was in the US Army. I was living my life healthy from what I understood, physically healthy, never broke a bone in my body. Never been cut into. Like, I was an athletic child. And then all of a sudden, but then when you look at markers like, wow, we have the highest rate of mental health disorders than any other chronic disease holder. Okay, we got it. So now we're not just looking at the pancreas, we got to start just looking at the hormonal system as a whole. And where were we environmentally? What were we eating? What we were exposed to, maybe vaccinations. I don't know. I'm not in that field, but is there so many what ifs? But when we can't even answer all the what ifs, we have that one thing that's what we are strong. We are resilient.
Resilient.
We are impeccably resilient. And I'm sorry, like I remember just the other day, and I don't want to admit it, but I had to hold the wheel with one hand, and then at the light, hurried up, checked my blood sugar. My daughter's sitting there, she just hands me a wipe. It's just a rhythm. And then like, oh, all right, I'm like, oh, we made it. We got through the light. We did that in less than 25 seconds. Mm-hmm. Just to make sure that we're okay. Or when your partner's trying to check on you, and you're like getting frustrated because you're like, I wish I could live this life by myself without all the assistance of whomever or whatever. How many times have you had to stop and run into a restaurant when you're minding your business, doing your thing, and you having a hypo?
Many times.
I was having a beautiful shopping spree one day, and I had to run into a restaurant and tell the host, I said, "Sir, I'm a type 1. I am drastically falling right now." I was like, "Can I please get a beverage?" And he says, "Oh, no problem, girl. My grandma's a type 1. Ran, got me a Coke. Now you tell me that ain't God." Listen, I've been so, and I'm telling you, my message for people.
You've been so blessed.
You have to believe in something, but my something is God. Okay. And I do not deviate from that. I tried to run away from him for at least a good 17 years. I was unkept. I was out here just doing my thing. No foundation.
Look, you were 20.
Knowing better now.
Look, better. We were 21 in the club.
Keeping me. I mean, to the people around me that could have took advantage of a situation, the people who could have walked away, or the situations where I really should be dead and I'm not. And wow, how many times has that happened to us? We should be dead, but we're not. We're here, and we don't make excuses. And we raise our children, we support our spouses, we are business owners, we are entrepreneurs. Like you're getting it, we're doing it. So, I tell people, you have to have that foundation. Faith is important in this, because there are times where we really don't even know where we're going to get that strength from. And we don't know what the next day is going to look like, but we're doing it anyway. And we're doing it in the face of adversity. So we've got a long way to go, but we are connected. We're deep, and we have to integrate, and we have to get this on board with each other.
Right. There are limits to everything in life, but we grew up in an era where Master P told us to be about it, and there was no limit. We are literally no limit soldiers.
We are.
Seriously, you just touched on a bunch of things that I haven't been able to touch on thus far in these conversations, because we're literally like the same age. Like, you said you turned 40 this year.
Yeah.
I turned 41 in January.
Hey, me too. I'm a January baby.
See? January, what's the
27th?
Okay. I'm a Capricorn, 18th.
Okay, you almost made the cut. All right.
That's fine.
It's all right. Look, but happy belated to you.
To you as well. Look,
Thank you.
You had a big celebration this year. 40.
Yeah.
Look, 4 decades on this earth. That's a true blessing when we consider at the turn of the century, the average lifespan was a little over the turn of the 19th century was a little over 40 years, like 46 years. Mm-hmm. Today, we're living, we're thriving, we're doing everything we can.
Yes, we are.
But I did want to reverse a little bit, because you got me thinking about so many things. Like when you said you remember being 21 in the club, having the bolus and blah, blah. I've never, ever been able to have that conversation with someone.
Oh, man.
Look, I'm from the Philadelphia area, and I remember every weekend.
We're from the same stomping ground.
Okay, I did not know that.
The same stomping ground. I I was in Dover, Delaware. I went to Delaware State University, Black College, HBCU Hornets.
You okay?
I was I was bouncing around between Del State, University of Delaware, Cheney.
I did not know. Hold on, we haven't had this conversation?
No.
I didn't know you were from this area.
Yes.
I'm from Wilmington.
Good. Okay. So I'm born in the Bronx. I was raised in Dover. My dad was Air Force. So my life was just all on DMV in the tri-state area. That's my whole upbringing.
Look, off air, we really gotta have a conversation because I'm guessing you graduated 2022. I mean 2002, 2002, 2001. Oh, you were a year ahead. You were a year ahead.
Yes, I was a year ahead.
Same year as me.
Yep, I'm an 01 graduate. I joined the military at 17. So I graduated at 17. Went to college at 17, and then the towers went down September 11th.
Look, I wrote that down here. Iraq, Afghan war, like to ask you.
Yeah, and then I was off to training in January 2002. Wow. I was gone. And so my life had a whole nother trajectory. Had it been up to me, I would have been at Howard Dental School because I went as a medical laboratory specialist. That was my first job. So I was actually bio pre-med on my way to being a doctor or dentist. Ended up switching my career field in the military when did a medical laboratory specialist to a dental tech, then dental hygienist. And I was going to go into the officer candidate program and be an officer and have my own practice. Look, and I was going to be at Howard Dental School.
You got me laughing right now because I'm like,
Jen, I used to be a Club Love every weekend.
Look, right? What's the Club Love? Like, that was my spot.
I
had a 25th birthday party there.
I was going by that.
I remember when Keisha Cole and Kanye were there. Well,
yeah. Talking about Howard Homecoming. I went to Usher. A couple people there. There's a lot of people there. Yeah, and oh man, Freeway. The whole
state property.
Everybody, yeah. Meek Mills used to come down to Del State all the time on this bike.
Right.
Like
Meek Mills with the braids and stuff.
I remember, Chris and Neef, going to 4040
in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember all of those days. Look,
to answer your question, I never had a continuous glucose monitor, and I never had a pump. I didn't get on a pump until I was 26. About 26. So I was out here doing multiple daily injections. I got married young. I've been married for almost 18 years, but I got married at 22. So I got married, then maybe less than a year, I had type 1 diabetes. Undiagnosed, just kept having symptoms of other things, and I got sickly small. And my husband and friends were like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" It was just like a decline. But I was diagnosed at around 632. That was my blood sugar. The day I got diagnosed, which would be, actually, it was sometime between this day and April 1st, but we marked the 29th as my diaversary. So my diaversary will be in 2 days. But I was just looking at the paperwork, and I was like 632. Ketones through the roof. Shouldn't be talking to you right now,
Look, I'm just listening to your testimony right here because I mean, I love having these conversations, like I said, with my people. But Jennifer, how did you keep all of this from me? Because I'm up here thinking like back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and I'm up here thinking like, okay, I remember like I found like so much of a community back then, like just people, not people with diabetes, because I didn't have diabetes. I was diagnosed in 2003. But when I'm thinking like, were you on AOL? Like, you remember like all of that stuff, Black Planet and all of that stuff? Like,
Yes.
So many relationships and people I met through those.
I
Like,
still know people from MySpace.
look,
I
see,
literally still remember. Like, again, you're talking to someone who I done seen the military uniform change about
mm-hmm.
5 times, five different types of
Look,
fatigue.
I have
Like,
so many people that I grew up with, or like girls I dated back then whose fathers were at Dover Air Force Base. Like
yep,
I
my dad was at
look,
Dover.
I remember sneaking into people, like being hidden in closets because mom and dad were on their way home from the Air Force Base, like that type of stuff.
Yo, oh my God, listen, I was such a tomboy. All I did was hang with dudes and ride bikes for miles and miles around the city. And then when I used to take, so every summer up until I turned about 13, I used to go to Easton. So I was in Easton, Pennsylvania, and we would ride our bikes all the way to Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from the South Bronx, so it's the same kind of culture, but just
Right.
less. I don't like to use the word country, but it was just more city in essence. But yeah, life lessons were learned. A lot of street smarts, a lot of head on the swivel. You know how to talk. You know how to
Mm-hmm.
get through. Um, that really, that grit that I feel like our kids sometimes miss because
Miss.
we make it so desirable to live.
I know, especially if we lived through that
Yeah.
era and that time and that space. Like I tell my kids, like I don't care, no matter what, you will not go through the things that I went through. Like
Mm-mm.
that's something that you're privy to, that I went through it already.
I I kind of feel, like I said, that grit that we have, that extra,
Mhm.
that roughness is it helps with this too. It definitely helps thicken the skin. It helps callous your emotions a little differently because one, you can almost have like automatic survivor's guilt because I don't know about people where you're from. And I'm not saying everybody where I'm necessarily from is not doing well, but what I saw well for myself looked different than where
Mhm.
I'm from. And that's a lonely space as well. You know what I'm saying? Let alone to have this disease. It can be lonely. It really
Right.
can. And you can feel like you're on an island by yourself. Um, and then we're
Right.
not even talking about the mental health aspect, but you not seeing you, now you're dealing with this disease, this chronic disease that everybody's like, what the heck is that? What's that on, or what are you doing? Are you about to stick yourself with a needle? All these this mindset necessarily wasn't where it should have been for people like us. And we have to find our tribe. I'm glad you said you had people who were in your corner and you could identify with like that. I just know it was difficult coming from where I was because I wasn't an integrated military brat. My dad got out like right before I went to middle school. So I didn't have that, us moving from base to base thing.
Mhm.
I mean, I knew about military. That's why I was always stuck on a base with my dad. We had one car, we had to go pick him up, stuff like that. But no, I didn't, see that as like, oh, those are my people.
Right.
But now it's like you have to find a community. Like you're almost a little bit lost without it, because of the type of things that we discuss and the things that we
Mhm.
touch on that you wouldn't necessarily get from your doctor
Right.
or just by knowing who your neighbor. Oh yeah, my neighbor says she's got type 2. You guys kind of technically got two different things, But here we are. I mean, it's a, like I said, far cry from back in the early 2000s where it wasn't really also forced upon us to get on a pump and stuff. It wasn't
Mhm.
for me at least.
Right. It's a far outcry from then, because being diagnosed as we were in our early 20s, and I've
Hmm.
spoken to people about this in the past, because they find it hard to believe when I tell them being diagnosed at 20 in this area, I was not shared the advances in technology Even the
Mm-hmm.
advancements in insulin. Like I remember taking regular and pH 70/30 mix, like
Wow.
um and also like being shared like the multiple like endocrinologists.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember being told that there was only one endocrinologist
Yep.
in the area and whatnot. And when I
And
tell
probably wasn't even the best one. It was just the one that your insurance would,
right,
and didn't even talk to you about an internal medicine doctor, did
not
they?
at
Or
all.
or a qualified nutritionist.
Not at
Right.
all.
Those are people who can help too. Yeah.
Yeah, and, for the most part, I stuck with my primary care for many years, who knew nothing about hormones, knew not like
Yep.
was fixated on everything with type 2 diabetes. And
Mm-hmm.
just because I had family history, like my dad is a type
Mm-hmm.
2 diabetic,
I saw your interview with him.
right? So,
Great.
and my dad would cuss him out, and that made me not want to go into those visits. I remember being a kid in there, my dad and him cussing that doctor out, like, "You're not going to tell me this, you're not going to tell me that. I'm a human first," things like that,
Mm.
because
And in Delaware, nonetheless. So and I don't want to stay in Delaware because it's done what is done for everybody. But I know, you know, I remember that you could feel the history, you could feel some of the racism, you could feel that iron curtain, so to say. I could always just feel that resistance. And I mean, I remember when NASCAR would kick off and you would just see all the different people coming in town from all different places and with their attitudes. And you're like, what? This is, this is different. And, you're not
that's
really
crazy.
exposed to it until you're exposed to it. And with healthcare, my mom, I had to really shout my mom out for this because she would, at some point she would call me a hypochondriac when I was a kid. She was like, what's wrong with you? You always want to go to the doctor. You always think something was wrong with you. And she used to say, I used to say as a kid, I felt like I was like ants were crawling underneath my skin. She would say I would have sensations like that. And she would say that I feel like I was buzzing. And I can only relate that to when I was diagnosed. I felt like that. It was this uncontrolled blood sugar. I remember that feeling. And I don't know if there was just a feeling of me being hyper, having too much sugar, or, at the time as a kid, I may have said that or communicated that to her. But it was something that always stuck with me. But when she would go to the doctor, she said, this is what my daughter's feeling. And if that doctor did not validate what I was feeling, my mom would go take me to another doctor. So far as though we would go all the way to Rehoboth Beach to see a doctor. I never forget my mother when it was time for me, to go to my first woman appointment. You get
Hmm.
your parts looked at and everything examined, and you have to talk about the pill and all that other stuff. We went to two doctors. She didn't like them, and she said, "Nope, I'm taking you down there to Lewis Beach." We went, and you know how far Lewis Beach is from Dover. Um, but I really just have to, like I said, commend my mom for doing that. As one, I'm a young woman. I'm not really understanding the healthcare system, but it let me know and it helped kind of get the framework on what I do with my own daughter and for myself as being an advocate. Because hey, sometimes you got, and you know this. I mean, you're grown now, but you got to check. So you got to check your medical attention very quickly if you notice that they're going to be out of order with your stuff. I'm a military spouse. This is our eighth duty station in 18 years of marriage, and I've had to check a lot of
Hmm.
healthcare facilities. And
Right.
I'm
Your
not,
mom,
I'm not proud of it, but I've had to, because to take care of myself.
right. Your mom taught you at an early age
Hmm.
to not just accept whether it was a diagnosis, accept just because of the person in the white coat is telling you this is what needs to occur,
Yeah,
or this is what you have to do. She went and showed you, like, get other opinions.
yeah,
That's the way that's what we need to do as people in general. Never
in
settle,
general, yeah,
never settle, because if we settle, that can be settling for less.
yeah.
Now, I know we've been talking about a lot of our background and history. I mean, you took me down a rabbit hole, really. Like
Sorry.
it was good though because it helped me when you sometimes you can like drive through certain areas and you can smell the air and you get that like it reminds you of
Familiar, right?
where you were I can still smell the air if I go through north or east side of Wilmington, and it reminds me of my grandmother. Like I know that her spirit is still here, things like that. So
Hmm.
just having that recap of our past lives,
Right.
it felt so good. I did want to ask you, like you grew up in multiple areas. How big was your family?
I just have a brother, a younger brother, my mom and my dad. And my parents were living together. We grew up in a two-parent home up until yeah, about, like I said, I was 21. My brother was, yeah, roughly 18, almost 18. So, and then, we're on to the next part of our lives. But my father's family is huge and my mother's family is huge. So, all spread across the Bronx, all spread across, like I said, Easton, Pennsylvania. And originally all my family is from like ancestral South Carolina, but, migrated up towards the Bronx. And so we're just now, I think my family, now that everybody's kind of spread out, a lot of us have explored the South, and some had decided to stay. So yeah, I mean, I got family pretty much everywhere, but that growing up aspect of it, tons of cousins, tons of uncles. My dad's the last of 10, so I have a
Um,
lot of yeah, a lot of aunts and uncles. So yeah,
that generation before us, it was like nonstop.
yes,
I mean, it was literally before like contraception, like
yes.
seriously. And
Grandma had 10. She
that's
wasn't playing.
look, that's how it was back then.
Yeah.
I think my grandmom, she actually had nine. One was I think her first was a stillbirth. My mom's grandmom actually had like 15 kids.
Oh, so you
Like,
have a big family too.
I mean, she had like 15. She had a bunch of stillbirths early
Oh,
on.
sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. But I did find out last year through ancestry.com that she too died from type 1 diabetes. Yeah,
Get out of here.
yeah,
So,
in
yeah,
1954.
God, wow.
Yeah, so myself and I have a cousin, a first cousin who's also type 1. So we know where it traces towards.
I I was the first person in my family, and after my mom experienced chemotherapy and radiation when she had stage 4 breast cancer, she too was diagnosed as a type 1. So mom
We
became
have too much in common.
yeah, my mom got diagnosed at a late age. I believe she was like 50 when she was diagnosed. So, and it wasn't type 2. It wasn't like later, it wasn't
Hmm.
nothing. And um, my grandfather had type 2, her father. But other than that, not a single person in my family has type 2 or type 1. And not a single person on my husband's side has type 1 or type 2. So, and I recently just ordered a kit for my daughter. So,
Trial net.
yes,
Yeah, I've done that with my
I'm
kids.
yeah, we're so, how the kids, she's gonna film it. We're gonna put it together.
How old is your daughter?
She's 11.
Oh, yeah, she's
So
gonna
you
film it.
already, know the vibes. You know the vibes. So everything is content. So I'm learning from her, but we're interested to see what her, her blood order will look like, and honestly, it's no different than women getting the BRCA test to see if, genetically. I had to do it because my
Hmm.
mom had several different types of cancer, so I wanted to get that out the way, and thank God I found out that no, It's not genetic. So, because then what we do with that information thereafter is important, and I know there are medications for that. I think, what was it, for the prevention or the slowing down of development type 1?
Yeah, T-Shield, teplizumab.
Yeah. Like I said, myself, I didn't even know how I was getting it. I didn't know this was evolving. I was just sitting in the class one day, and, that's when it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Was like, I feel like crap. I need to go to seek medical attention. What about yourself, though? Did you find out gracefully, or did you find out abruptly?
So, just to, what I was saying, that we have a lot in common. So my grandmother, she was actually going through cancer treatment starting in 2001. And in 2000, she passed September 12th, 2003. But during that process of going through her cancer treatment, she also developed type 1 diabetes, not type 2, type 1. And the strange thing about that is because I was diagnosed 6 months before her death. And I remember actually going by her house and getting like the Lantus pens and I think like Novolog or Humalog from my aunt, like getting her stuff so I wouldn't struggle with it.
Wow.
So yeah, that was my great grandma, my grandmom, myself, my first cousin. Luckily, my children don't have any of the autoantibodies and markers, but I have told the remainder of the family, and I've been telling them and reiterating to please get checked because there's so many autoimmune conditions in my family.
I'm telling you, we're all interconnected in some kind of way. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's about environmental. I don't know if it's dietary. I do not know if it's the materials that we're wearing or the products that we're using, but it's deeper than us, and there is a root, and is a cause.
There's always a root to everything.
Yeah.
You were, how old were you when you were diagnosed? 20, 21?
22.
22.
Yep.
Okay.
22.
Okay. So being diagnosed at 22, you said you were in college and you were in the military as well.
Yeah.
Were you active duty or reserve at the time?
Oh, I was reserve at the time because I was a full-time college student.
College student now. So you remember life before that diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I always I push to have psychotherapists, especially trauma therapists, being able to work with people upon diagnosis of a chronic health condition. Because at that time, I don't think that I felt it as being like so traumatic, so overwhelming. But years later, when I look back at it from a more of a clear mind, because upon diagnosis, blood sugar is 500 plus, so you really can't focus. But when I do look back at those times, and I say to myself, like, it was so traumatic, one of the greatest traumatic experiences of my life, and it hasn't gone away.
Yep.
So we remember the life before. You remember high school, prom, like graduating, going into college, and the free mind, like you were able to do everything fit, strong, brute. Like myself, I'm about 6 foot, 180 pounds, and I've always been like the strongest, like of like my peers and everything. But when I stepped into that hospital, I was down to 140 pounds.
Yep.
Like I had lost 40 whole pounds, and I didn't even know.
Didn't even know. Yeah, it's that life. It, like I said, I promise you, and I say he kept me. He kept me because there's moments where I should not literally be talking. I shouldn't be alive. It was traumatic. And to highlight something else, we talked about what we do and what we did, or I did some of, what I had the military, I had the aspirations of being a dentist. I had I'm not saying that diabetes stopped that, But when the rug is abruptly pulled from underneath your feet, and you are so young, you do have a fixed stated mind on, no, it's going to go like this, and then it's going to go like that, and then it's going to go like that. No one is talking to you, and now in mental health we know this, but no one is telling you then, well, hold on now. Delay doesn't mean denial. You can still pursue your dreams. Let's tackle some of these things. What are you feeling? What are you dealing with? No, I did not dissect any of that. I did not dissect that. Matter of fact, I'll never forget, and just to highlight the process when you're discharged from the military from having a chronic disease, and I'm going to speak for mine specifically. But when I see the papers is, diabetes, mellitus, and, type 1, unfit for duty, you're like, whoa, I'm passing every PT test, every single, test to make my rank. You're doing all the right things, and you're telling me this is going to take me out. This is going to stop what I was pursuing. This was, and let's also note, by the way, the thing I was pursuing was financially going to stabilize my life. Diabetes is crippling financially, and diabetes is crippling emotionally. And then again, like I said, you feel like you're on this island by yourself. Who are you calling at 2 a.m. when you're having a hypo? One, you got to probably explain to the person what a hypo is.
And then you can't even explain it.
Yeah, then you ain't got the time to do that. Then when you do that, then, well, you get the ignorance that comes along with it, which is to be expected. Some people think, oh, you're supposed to take insulin, right? You're like, no. Insulin is to break down the sugar, not to do the other thing. So you are becoming an advocate about a topic that you're learning in real time. And then you're learning your specific diagnosis, and you're learning, how to now change what you eat if that's what you're going to do. And if you used to be too fit, I used to be really physical. So I didn't know that anything can exert my energy, and it can cause my blood sugar to deplete rapidly. I did not know about that. I didn't know. And we're in relationships, so you are with your partner, and you're also having to understand, what's going on with my temper? What's going on with my emotions right now? Is it because of my blood sugar, or is it because it's how I'm feeling? So now you're going through a litany of concerns that you never had to concern yourself with. That is overwhelming. That is traumatic. And no one can shut it off, because now your brain is constantly going about numbers and did I do this, and am I doing this right? And you are your own guinea pig, so to say, because we all know there's a different way to skin a cat with this thing. Everybody's wearing a different device, or has a different setting, has a different endocrinologist for that matter. And diabetes is not created equal, even though it's one number, but it's not created equal. I'm gonna be honest, I am I don't want to say a poor diabetic, but my best A1C was when I was pregnant. And I have never been able to get it down that low ever since. And I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm not that I don't care, but I know it's just always going to be a goal that I have to hit. It's always going to be a mark. That in itself is traumatic. So, trauma in this disease, it doesn't even look the same, because most of us still have to continue to do things just like everybody else, with the added benefit of being a type 1. And I say benefit because
it could be,
I show up so much more differently for my coworkers. I show up so much more differently for strangers. I show up in a whole nother way, because I'm like, listen, baby, I know what could kill me right now. I wake up every day.
The preparation.
I know what could take me out right now.
Right. So, we're actually preparing to have the conversations, preparing for the meetings, preparing for everything, because like you said, we know what could take us out.
I know what could take me out. And I love I will say the professional confidence that I've gained because of it. Because I'm a very direct person. And I can, people say, oh, that's the military in you. And it may be, and it may not be. I don't know. I'm not going to go for that. I'm just going to say is I like things the way I like it, and I prepare for it. And if I want something, I prepare for it too. And with this is something that you can prepare for all day and all night, and you're still gonna make a mistake, and you're still gonna be, left to the devices. So, you have to have a light heart too. You have to be lenient. Again, I love where mental health, the discussion about where mental health has taken us now, because now we could freely talk about this. I have a therapist. I have always had a therapist for the past, I want to say, ever since I had my child, so about 11 years. And I checked myself because, another ugly monster reared its head. And at that time, it was postpartum depression. So I was like, God don't play about his people, and I'm not about to play about myself. I know myself. This is not who I am. This is something ain't right. And I immediately got that care for postpartum depression. And it probably, it took about 5 years to get out of that, because I didn't even know that's what motherhood could do to you. On top of, now I got to control my blood sugar.
Right. It's those the hormonal fluctuations and imbalances. It's like you're part of a sports team, and instead of them teaching you like, oh, this is how you swing the bat and hit a ball, they're like, find a bat, find a ball. You don't even know what a bat and a ball is. And then when they do come to you, you're holding a golf club while bowling balls are being thrown at you. Like,
I mean,
what do you do?
I was, like I said, I was 26 when I got on the pump, because other things started to come up, like, I haven't gotten pregnant. Wonder what's wrong. Wonder what's going on. These are things I didn't even consider. And I'm saying that I just entered, marriage blindly and preparing for a child blindly. But, you do start to look at the clock, and you're like, well, hold on now. Something has changed, my cycle is off, or I notice I'm gaining weight in this area, and then you don't know if it's necessarily just because you're aging and your hormones are changing, your composition is changing, or is it something else? Did the diabetes do something to another part of my body, or do I need to have a concern about this? And I remember sitting, my husband and I were in Vegas for our anniversary, I think our 3-year wedding anniversary, or 3 or 4 years, one of those things. And we're sitting at a restaurant, and I see this girl pull out her device, her PDM, and she goes and she puts numbers, and she checked her blood sugar. And I said, "Are you a diabetic?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've been a type 1 since I've been 7." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a type 1 diabetic too." And we linked immediately, and she asked me, she says, "Have you gotten pregnant yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't, and I don't know what." She says, "You need to get on the insulin pump." And I was like, "Oh." And at this time, I was really vain. I was very vain. Because I was very into fitness, and so I don't know. I was just being stupid and young and thinking about the wrong things. Okay, we're just gonna call it what it is.
You weren't thinking about diabetes, like.
No, I wasn't. I honestly was not. And you do have that fearlessness, I guess, when you're a certain age. Mm-hmm. But I was fearless, and I was also very misinformed. And she informed me right then and there, like, listen, you need to get on this pump to regulate your blood sugar, but to regulate your hormones and your frequency when you're having your cycle. So when you're ovulating and things like that. She was like, basically, like, snap out of it, girl. It's time to wake up. It's time to be an adult with type 1. And I'm so thankful that we had that conversation. And actually, she helped guide me. She was so gracious enough to give me her number, and for about 2 months, she helped guide me. And she's the one who got me linked up with Omnipod. And I've been on Omnipod ever since. But and I got pregnant maybe 2 years later. So I really accredit that information. And I wouldn't have had that had we not had this, open dialogue about it. But you know as well as I do, it's access. It is access, and it's who is willing to want to see you thrive with this. And I just feel that to be completely true sometimes when it comes to these medical professionals.
Right. We know that as people living with the chronic health conditions such as type 1 diabetes, we should you should have had the convenience of having your primary care, your endocrinologist, all working together to make sure that, I mean, I'm pretty sure they knew you were married.
Hmm.
Eventually you would be trying to conceive. So they should have been working together to
They
make
should have.
sure that you are aligning yourself with just the basics and understanding so that you can birth a child, a healthy child. But we see that nonstop flowing in front of our eyes, like when women are trying to get pregnant and they're asking questions to the community. Their doctors even today are still not giving them that information. They're not giving us anything that we truly need of value other than the insulin.
And I've met young ladies who are the age, I'm like teen age, who have type 1. And, one of the first things I let them know is, and I really do make a point to say this, and I know that, as a woman, no, our whole life is not wrapped up in being barefoot and pregnant. And I get that. But for those who want to have a child, I straight up asked them, I said, do you want to one day have a child? I was like, you will have a child, and you will have a healthy child, and you will have a pregnancy that is going to be amazing, because you're going to be so in tune with what is going on. And don't let anybody plant that seed of doubt in you, because, as a type 1, we're dealing with PCOS, potentially polycystic ovarian syndrome. We're dealing with uncontrolled thyroid glands, hyperthyroidism and hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, some lupus. And there's a variety of other chronic diseases that actually are very well closely linked to what a type 1 may get, right? And we're talking women are not even looking at their, oh, why is my hair texture changing? Something you need to look into. You need to talk to your internal medicine doctor. You need to talk to a nutritionist. Like you said, you need to have a team. Why is your vision changing? You need to go to ophthalmologist. My toes are tingling. You need to go see a podiatrist.
Right.
We can't just run everything through one type of doctor, but this is the key right here. This thing right here. This muzzle. We got to start using our mouths to communicate. I'm seeing too often that we're not bold enough to ask those questions about the things that we want. We're quicker to go on WebMD and try to learn it ourselves versus have a communication with a person, a human being. And we're not specialists, but we're very qualified to talk about this. And I think any type 1 diabetic, and I'm not even going to put a year on it, because I know there's type 1s who've been a type 1 for like 2-3 years, and they're like, they got me shook. I'm like, oh my God, you're almost a doctor. There's some things that I just feel very I feel very silly that I don't know, but I'm increasing my knowledge with the day and age and what we're doing. But like I said, go back. I tell those women, you're gonna have a healthy child. You have to first believe it, and then you got to do the work to get there. But you can have a healthy child. You can have a healthy pregnancy. And again, that wasn't afforded to me. I had to run into a complete stranger just to be, I guess, encouraged, because I almost started to give up at some point. But I also had to do something too. I had to do some soul searching, because you play around a lot and you're not realizing, like, oh shoot, like I'm playing around too much. And I know that happens anyway as you get older, but as you know, you and I, we had to grow up with being a type 1 a lot sooner than some of our peers. I had to snap out of this fake reality, this little nuclear life that I thought it was supposed to be, and say, okay, well, hold on now. You look a little different now. You got to reshape some things. Maybe instead of, going about this way, I need to be devoting more time to finding the top 3 endocrinologists in the city. Maybe instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to drive outside of a 15-mile radius, I need to take my behind to the next biggest city. Sometimes you do need to give yourself that attention that you're not giving, because I'm guilty of that. I don't know anybody else. You got
Look,
kids, whenever
you're speaking on everything, because when I decided to create this podcast, I was like, I have not learned more from anyone in the community than other people living with type 1 diabetes. So
hmm
I was asked when I was working on the platform, do I want this to be um, entertainment value? Like, it asks you different things: entertainment, medicine, education. And I chose medical and educational, because
hmm
as people who are living with and managing this chronic health condition, no one with any certification can gift to another person that's living with this as much value as we can,
Yeah.
because someone can say something like, we see the numbers, we see the graphs, we see the trends, we know your basal's off, we know your correction factors are off and whatnot,
Right.
but that's just talk. It's a lived experience
Yeah.
where someone can show you, like, I can show the community
Mm.
how personally I've been able to go from a 11 A1C to a below 6 A1C for the last 6+ years. And I've been able to
Wow.
do that with hundreds of people today. I've been
hmm
able to actually train endocrinologists and diabetes educators on those things
hmm
as a public health advocate and someone who works as in the just a public health field in general, and
Okay.
being
Yeah.
being a need in the community. So
Yeah.
like, you right now are given the education as someone who's lived this experience. First, you were gifted the opportunity to meet that young lady in Vegas,
Mm.
that young lady who asked you about pregnancy and told you, like, oh, you should get on a pump because it'll
Yep.
basically lessen the burden that is the wear and tear on your body. Like,
hmm
seriously.
hmm
And now you've been able to share that with the community, share that with
Yeah.
people, and keep on sharing that with people, because like I said, there are so many people that you see or who are just under the assumption that they're not going to be able to have a child. And you're telling them, yes, if you want a child, you will have that child.
hmm And I had, like I told you, I did some soul searching. I was being vain. I was being small minded. I was letting something like, what does it, I was so uptight about the idea of it being on my body and everybody being, questioning it. I mean, you're talking to somebody who was injecting herself through her jeans underneath the table, not even whipping out my arm and doing it the old fashioned way. It just, there had to be something. I had to die to self. There we go. That's just what that is. That was my experience. I had to die to that idea of just, girl, it ain't perfect. This ain't pretty. And it, but guess what? It can be. Guess what? It can be attractive. It can be something that is not looked at like it's a stain. Um, and like when I started diabetic, it was like really important for me to, like, I had to say, okay, whatever it's gonna be, it's gotta be me, because me is gonna come out anyway. But it was born like out of a place of like desire to transform what challenging with living with type 1 diabetes even looked like, and be a source of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, going from someone who was like crazy vain to, like, I look at pictures of myself when I was 20s, in my late 20s, standing with my girls and I got my pump showing. I'm the only one with a pump. I'm like, here we go, pumping it out. And not a single person, batted an eye about it, because it was the confidence that I brought with it, and that's the confidence that we have, that we exude. We really do. And especially to my shy people,
Right.
my private people who don't want to be out there. But how else would have known that there were other Black women and men like me out there with type 1, just winging it, just winging it.
That's what we were doing.
just winging it, because we were so misinformed. And then I'll meet a white counterpart who tells me, "Oh yeah, my mom. I never forget. This is a true story. I met another type one who was a white boy, and he says to me that his mom had he had a dog. I can't. What's the name of the dog? The ones that they find out if you're about to go low and stuff, like a medical dog.
Oh, okay. Diabetic alert dog.
Thank you, but diabetic. And he said, yeah, she would go to silent auctions and auction for medical dogs. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm confused. What did you just say to me? He said she would go to auctions and silent auctions at diabetic. I guess I'm not saying it's JDRF or whatever, whatever brand or whatever, but they would auction off diabetic dogs. And I said, how much was this dog cost? And he said, about 10,000.
They're very expensive.
I said, how many dogs have you had in your lifetime? He says, well, I was diagnosed around 14. I've had about 3 dogs. 3 dogs.
Right. They usually last about 5-6 years.
I was like that day years old when I found that out, because I was like, so you're telling me, that an animal is provided to you through an auction, but I'm sure there are other, I would have basically, I'm the type of person I would dig deeper anyway. But that was just mind blowing to me. I've never heard of that in my life. I've seen that for epileptic, people. I've seen that for, I think for not just epilepsy, but anyway, there's other neurological disorders that I've seen the dog used for, but I didn't even know. And I'm like, golly, I would have been trying to get a dog. Yeah, it's $10,000, or that's what your mom paid. But my goodness, just the access to that knowledge.
You can get them a lot less than that.
The access to that knowledge.
Look, I have a diabetic alert dog that I've trained through MD Dogs. I got him at 12 weeks, and MD Dogs is a nonprofit organization where it provides you with all of the material needed, the videos, a 200-page book that you can get online where you can train your dog to be a medical
I am noting that
dog.
MD Dogs. See,
yep.
and look,
I've shared that with hundreds of people.
That is amazing. And I was just, but like I said, I was just put on to so many different things. And then I met a young lady, she's from India, when I was actually in Guatemala. Her and I both were type 1s, had the same insulin pump. And she's looking at mine. She's like, it's a lot smaller than mine. And I was like, yeah, this is the Omnipod 5. And she's like, there's a 5? And I'm like, yeah, there's a 5. And then, God is good anyway, the way he connects people. But we have so many different avenues to take care of ourselves now. And we just need to, we got to wake up. We got to stop acting like we don't see one another. That's killing it. That right there is what's slowing the pace down.
Look, speak about it. There are so many things out there that are truly accessible, but if you don't know the right people, then they're not accessible. Like we see even across our social media feeds, like things that pop up at different places. Everyone, you know how many times, Jen, I get messages from people asking me if I'm going to be at a certain place, or why wasn't I seen there? And I'm like, if you feel as though I should be there, while you're there, ask those people. It's almost like if you're sitting in a room or whatever, and you hear people talking about your close friend or a relative, and you don't stand up and say anything. Like silence is a bliss. Like, that if I'm not there, and the things that I'm doing to help benefit the community, especially people of color, then there's a reason I'm not there. Ask them, and don't ever say like this person isn't there because they're not doing this or they're not doing that.
No. We talked about this really briefly, but are we surprised? No. Do we know what happens in our face? Absolutely. Absolutely. I, I felt like I had I'm going to be a disruptor here in this conversation about this because I know for a fact we're being ignored, and then we're not even just being ignored. We're like I said, it's being played within our face because you'll see the reels to the hip hop and R&B songs.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the connections. You'll see the colloquialisms being used. And you're like, where are y'all getting this from? How are y'all using this? And how are y'all tying this in constantly to the same disease that we share? But not to mention, no, Willie, sorry, I called you Willie. Miss will be in that space and then you're still being ignored. So not only do we all have the same thing going on with us that makes us the same, you'll hear some of the conversations be altered where you still are, you don't fit in.
Look,
where you're not included.
I think that's a great issue right there because they know once Will's in the room, they will listen. They will listen.
That is exactly what we have.
I've actually been asked by one of the top podcasts in the nation if, like, when they do a tour, if I can join in on that tour, just me being me, because seriously, across our feeds, you'll see a good group of women of color. You don't see many men of color.
That's true.
At all. And even like doing this podcast, like I got 81 people signed up to record and everything. I only have like 3 or 4 men of color. And I reach and I contact and I do everything to the best of my ability to.
No, it's the same here as a Black woman too. I've reached out to Black women. I've reached out to women of color who are not necessarily Black. And sometimes the response is, I mean, just like anything else in life, I think people are still afraid of competition. I still think people forget that we have the same thing. That does not mean that we're operating from the same space. My space, I feel like we're talking about daily struggles. We're talking about us being vigilant we're talking about our faith walk. We're talking about, so my space should be threatening your space. If your space is about diet and exercise, go ahead. If your space is about beauty and being an influencer, go ahead. If your space is about hair, fashion, if your space is about food. But see, we're not having, I feel like that mom and dad conversation where we're bringing everybody in and say, come on now, we need to talk, we family. And we're not being honest about the spaces that we're in. And instead of being collective and saying, hey, let's support our brother Will over here because he's doing the podcast thing. Let's roll with that. We want to be a part of his podcast. We need to support him. Hey, let's go over here with her. She's killing it in fashion. She's doing amazing. Oh, this one, you want to get your religious stuff together? The old girl or the children book, whatever. We are so multifaceted, but we still should be having our own little essence fest together. We need to get it together. And that's the best way I could think about it. But I'm tired of seeing, and another thing, everybody ain't that busy. Ain't that much busy in the world.
Look, I got 3 kids, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, 1 in elementary school. My wife, I coach, I work, like, come on now.
Yeah, you booked. I'm a military spouse. We're coming up upon PCS season, which is where we are potentially going to be relocating. Daughter, got things going on, spring break this week, but, still working. It's all good. But what I'm saying is we make the time for the things we want to make. And I'm very intentional about my time on social media.
Now, we've been having an amazing conversation. Like I tell everyone when we do start these conversations that they're organic. So like nothing's planned. But I gift this platform so that we can get the opportunity to, just be unapologetically us, let off some of that steam we have, sharing smiles and laughter, and let the community know, like, I am here. and
Yeah.
I'm ready to take on and over the world. Now, we do know that we all live with diabetes. So
Hmm.
we do have to take stops, breaks, pauses. Time is everything for us.
Hmm.
Um, I always ask people like towards the tail end, as I have gotten to know you a little more, and we haven't even spoke so much about diabetes, but if people if they're going to stay to the end, they're going to get to know this diabetes story as well, because it's a
Right.
huge and a great part of who we are.
Yes.
Being diagnosed at the young age that you were, dang, I keep forgetting, 22.
Hmm.
You knew life ahead of that and everything. Could you give me uh basically your diet story, your diagnosis story?
My diagnosis story, I was 22 years old, freshly married. I was feeling like crap every day, and I couldn't explain why. There was just nothing that I was physically doing to myself to experience that. And I'm pretty in tune with my body. I would say I have a good compass on where I am. But my mood changed, and again, I was telling you before about mental health. Like I know something's wrong. When I feel off mentally. And it was more than that. It was just like the physical wear and tear of my body was already starting to happen. Um, as a woman, I was experiencing yeast infections because of uncontrolled blood sugar range, which was not characteristic at all of me. So that put me in a panic. And I was diagnosed by a Black doctor, a Black Air Force doctor. My husband's Air Force. So I was afforded that opportunity to be able to have TRICARE as an insurance company. Um, I was misdiagnosed originally three times, three times. I went to that same hospital, and had my husband not played pickup ball with Dr. I don't know if there wouldn't have been an invested interest, but it was like,
Hmm.
we got to find out what's going on with this woman. Because she looks like everything's fine, but she's telling me that these are the constant symptoms, and the doctor keeps saying no, 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 no. So he said, finally, hey, I'm gonna make you. He said, I'm sorry, have you ever urinated in the cup before, or had your urine tested? I was like, no. He was like, yeah, go ahead and do that. We sat there in the office together, my husband and I. He had put a stick in there and showed me basically what ketones were. Had no idea what ketones were. Checked my blood sugar sitting right there. Like I told you, I was 632. He said, I don't even know how you're blinking right now. I really don't. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what's going on? And he was like, you're type 1 diabetic. He said, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure you are a type 1. And I'm going to have to set you up with an internal medicine doctor like this week. Like, you're going to meet with this nurse. She's going to show you how to inject yourself with insulin. And I'm still in shock. I have no idea what insulin does to what 632, what, like, I didn't know what normal range was. Because if you're not a diabetic, are you really thinking that at the time,
Right.
what was it? They said normal range was 80 to 120. So I'm looking at this chart and everything. He gives me the pamphlet, and I'm like, this is not that. Well, I don't fall in that, So why am I so high, and why is this number so low? He says, yeah, and he's like basically trying to break down what a pancreas does. I'm like, I don't know what this means, and I literally did not know what it meant. But then the nurse came in, and she had her syringe, and then all I knew was it was go time. Like, girl, you need to inject yourself with insulin, because he was like, I got to get your number down now. So she said, do you want to do it? Do you want me to do it? And I'm like, well, hold on, like, stop, pause. Somebody, I didn't understand the urgency. And looking back, I know 110% sure, like that doctor and his staff were literally scared to death, probably. They probably had never seen a case like mine or so severe like mine with no consequences yet, you know. And I saw an internal medicine doctor maybe 3 days later. They got me in immediately. And he said, "Okay, so this is what we're gonna do." And he broke everything down from the beginning to the end, and it was like, I felt like I literally had a funeral for myself, like in that moment, in that sitting. It felt like the death of Jennifer and the birth of Jennifer in the same time, and it felt so unfair. It just felt like, again, someone took away a lot of what I had hopes and dreams to do. But having now, been removed from those ideals, and now I have a whole nother life ahead of me that I've been leading and loving and living abundantly in. I wouldn't change anything for the world. There's no regrets in that diagnosis and where I am now.
Thank you for gifting us that story. You, I just was like glancing over some notes that I did receive from you, and I knew that just knowing all of what you stated earlier on that you were involved with and you wanted to do and wanted to become, I know that upon that diagnosis, it was like it was a great shock.
Mm-hmm.
And while you were telling that story, I was like having like flashes go between like before my face, like thinking of like you were in a relationship with a man who you married early on, and that relationship right there as husband and a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and just to think of like the different hormonal effects that were affecting your anger, your physicality, your emotional well-being, like it
Mm-hmm.
was all affected. And I must give honor and respect where it's due. First, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Um, your husband, what is his ranking
Thank you.
today after 20 something years?
Yes, he is a senior master sergeant in the United
Senior
States Air
Master
Force.
Sergeant.
Yes,
Thank you for your service, not
yes.
only for these United States, but thank you for your service to my sister Jenn, because you're there. I mean, this relationship is still going, still strong
Yep.
through the ups and downs and roller coasters that are type 1 diabetes. You did not
Yeah.
allow, he did not allow diabetes to stop him from loving you.
And still doesn't let up off me at all. Actually just texted me and said, "You need me to get you some juice or anything?"
Look, see, respect.
Yes.
Yeah, he knows and he knew then, like, no matter what. My little
He's a
Jim,
big supporter of your work too.
look, my Jim was gonna come back to me. Like she may have been off the rockers for a while.
Hey, and you
But
know it. And you know
good
it.
thing he was shooting hoops with Dr.
I'm
because
telling you. Yo, shout out
man,
to Percy. He's
yes.
retired Air Force. Listen, he knows who he is. He's one of the
Look,
best doctors.
thank you to these strong black men.
Yes. Yes.
These strong black men
Held me down. Yes, they did.
who took
They
it
cared about
upon
me enough. Yeah.
showed and shared love and support for you, that
Yes,
today you're able to actually step into your purpose.
I am. Yes.
Step into your purpose. Let God know I'm here to shine light for me, for you, for
Yes.
everyone. And you were gifted that second chance of life. You said that second
Yep.
chance of life, so that look, you're doing a lot more today than you were doing
Mhm.
at 22.
I am.
You
And,
see?
and I, and, it's another testament. Well, we're living, breathing examples of the courage. We're living examples of delay is not denial. you could be delayed, and yes, you might have to take a little bit of break to get your stuff together to get it situated. But like you said, you got to come back. I mean, swing it. And I love every ounce of this life. I take it day by day, but I don't take it for granted. And anyone that follows me, and you know this, like I try to be very intentional, not about the riffraff. We got strong, encouraging lives to live, and this is a duty. This is an assignment on us that we've been called to do individually. And yes, it doesn't feel fair at times, but listen, favor ain't fair either. And I got some, and you got some, and your family is blessed because they got a strong father and husband that's a type one. And your father, shout out to him. And grandma, God bless you.
Definitely.
And my mama, she's holding it down. We got all the pillars in place, Will. We just need to, we need to move. We gotta start really moving. And like I said, anytime you need me, I'll be there for you. I'll help you with this. I'll make sure we get our message across.
Look, yeah, because like even before this recording, like you had messaged me, I guess last night, but I got it this morning.
Yeah.
Asking me if we were still on. The first message I got this morning was my mom called me after I dropped my daughter off at school. It was like 8:45 or something. She's like, I just want to let you know that your dad's in the hospital. And I'm like,
no.
Yeah, something to do with high blood pressure and
I'm sorry. I hope he gets better.
So yeah, he will be better. I speak that into existence.
It's done.
Yeah. So normally, like when I get calls like that, I'm out the door no matter what I'm doing, and I'm there tending to him. But I know, like she said, she was going to the hospital with him, so I knew, like mom and dad, that's their time. They got that.
Okay.
Junior's gonna be all right. I text my brothers and my sister, and I told them, and we had a conversation, so we're good. But
we'll be praying for them, and I know what it is to have aging parents too. I'll be seeing my mother this weekend in Atlanta for Easter, and talk about a full circle moment. The first time my husband met my mom was Easter 18 years ago, and if you do the math, it was actually 69 days later we got married. So she literally met my husband on Easter, and in June we were husband and wife. So we laugh about it now. But then, oh my God, it was like, what are you doing? You don't know this man.
Mom, you just don't know what him and Dr. just did for me.
Listen, though, I'm telling you.
That was like right before.
Right after.
All right. Oh, March.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got diagnosed. Well, no, remember we were married for in June, so it was March of 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just sitting there about to be. No, I just turned 20. I just turned 23. Will, I'm sorry, I just turned 23 that year. I keep forgetting. I'm getting old. But, yeah, we weren't even married for a year, and I'm like, I've lost almost 60 pounds. And looking back, I'm like, how in the world was I even functioning? This man didn't even know my blood sugar was in the 600s. Oh, I was a handful.
And talking about those daily struggles and wins. Look, we went through all those struggles, but look, we're winning in life now. The life expectancy of someone living with type 1 diabetes is just as great as someone living without it today because of the advancements in medicine and technology.
And you know what, Will, there is going to be one day we will be in the same space again.
We're going to talk about that. So I do end my recordings on that conversation because and look, that's that brother sister intuition. You're in my head right now. Look, but yeah, like we were saying that that the age difference isn't too far off today. Like I think one is 74 years, one is 76 years. But because of the advancements in technology, insulin, things of that nature, like we're up there. And as we transition into ending this podcast, I always end on this note, Jennifer. I don't know if someone has told you this, but it seems as though you know what I end on. Today is March 27th. On the day that magical unicorn comes down, sprinkles its fairy dust all over,
Mm-hmm.
and we wake up, and the cure is like we're cured. Not the cure
Mm.
is here. We're totally cured. Diabetes has been eradicated.
Ooh, that,
Speaking into existence.
yeah.
That
This
day,
diabetes has been eradicated. Wow.
it has been eradicated. There's no like, but I'm not sure. I need to see everyone else first. No, it's going Van Moose
Wow.
on that day, my sister. What do you do?
What do I do? Oh, well, I do not abstain from many things now. I just do it very seldomly. But what would I do? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have to. This has been a minute since I had one. I, I'm going to 7-Eleven and I'm getting a slushie. I don't know about you, but I'm getting a slushie.
You getting that
I'm
big
gonna
gulp
feel like
Slurpee.
crap afterwards, but I'm getting a slushie or getting some Ritas. I love Ritas. Italian ice. Yeah, that's so bad.
Nah, it's good. Look at the
It's a
smile on.
sugar bomb
Nah,
too. I mean,
look at the smile on your face. See, people not living with
wow.
insulin dependence, type 1 diabetes, they don't truly understand the small things that make us smile. Like
Mm,
they don't realize that we we can have these things. We can have them in moderation. We can have them if we do the correct calculations. If our hormones are intact on that day, we can do them. We can do them if we're not sick.
that
Like
already doesn't sound like worth the trouble.
exactly. They don't understand that. If we woke up on the
Man,
wrong
listen.
side of the bed, if it's cold out, if it's hot,
That's
so many
isn't it?
different variables that exist
Yeah.
with just living with insulin dependence. Insulin is not a medicine. That's what I try to
No.
tell people. It's a hormone.
Yes.
That's something
Bro.
that needs to be
Mm,
shared upon diagnosis. Like,
yeah.
this isn't medicine, because medicine, we know when we're prescribed medicine, it's very seldom that we finish that medicine. It might be
Yeah,
sitting
that's
up in the
true.
medicine cabinet or thrown out or whatever. But
We use this all the time.
we use that every last drop of it.
Well, I know we're closing, but I'm gonna tell you this: honestly what you're saying is it hits so close to home because I was even filling my pump up yesterday, and I realized that I fill all the way up to 200 units. I never every now and then it'd be like 150 or whatever. And the thought crossed my mind. I said, "Wow, you can't even compare yourself to another type one and say, do you use all 200 units? Or what are you averaging a day? Are you using 28 units a day or 20? Like, and our body compositions and everything, hormones, like you said, environmental factors, our the blood pressures, our other ailments that we may have or don't, everything is inclusive. So one person might be averaging 36.5 units a day, and another person might be averaging 19. And you can't make yourself feel like crap just because somebody else has got a different lot in life. Like that's life anyway, isn't it? We're not a one size fits all situation. So the fact that we're using every drop, every ounce, everything, and we're still dealing with like I said, battling all those emotions and all those other issues or concerns. It all plays into the same thing. If we all want the same thing, I'm sorry, is to stay alive and live abundant lives. And that's all we want. And we shouldn't have a leash on life. Like we really need to control this thing and we need to get the science behind it and we need to drive the awareness behind it. So we got work to do, brother. We got a lot of work to do.
We got a lot of work to do, but look, I got my boots strapped.
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Look, I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Like I told them,
Yeah.
bring it on.
It's,
I mean,
We
the
already
term
10 toes down, baby. We
the
almost 20 years in this thing, you
look.
know?
Look, I'm 21 years in it.
No, 21. See,
Look, you almost
I'm
there.
still a
You
baby compared to you.
look,
I'm 19 years roughly. No, I'll be no 18 years, 2 days. So yeah, I got time, but
look,
I listen. I'm
look.
praying.
Make sure you celebrate.
I am.
Celebrate
I am
because look,
going to
your
celebrate.
diabetes is getting real grown. Like it's getting
She got an
real
attitude and
grown.
everything.
Look. Again, tell your husband, tell your daughter, tell your mother, tell everyone that truly thank you for just being able to continue to be in your presence because all of that support is needed for us to be at our
Yeah,
best. For us to be at our
yeah.
best. The times we wake up, the times we need help and assistance waking up, the
Mm-hmm.
times where we are not able to project or say the things in communication that we need to, they
Mm.
they understand.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
understand. I mean, I know early on my wife was scared as heck, like, but she knows today, like,
Yeah, she's holding it down, brother, because
she is.
we're not easy to handle.
Bro,
I laugh about that, but we know the truth. It's like,
I
oof.
know. Look, I remember those days. I remember them like it was yesterday. And at the same time, if you ever need any guidance, support, resources, reach out to me. I'm always
Thank
available
you.
for our people. Always
Thank
available for
you.
our serious.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me again. It's been a pleasure. It's probably one of the dopest interviews I've ever done. I'm already in my feels like, oh, it's got to end, but it's been great. Like
Look,
I'm looking forward to seeing all the material coming together. So we'll see.
it will be amazing.